and welcome back to Studio 77. I'm Emma, and on this video I'm going to show you how to make my I Spy bag. It is one of my best selling toys over on Studio 77, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. Now do remember, this was recorded live previously within the 77 Club. If you'd like to find out more, you can find that in the description below along with the pattern details. So the first thing you want to do is you want to download the I Spy bag pattern, and you want to cut out all your pieces exactly as it shows you in the directions. Starting off with the name label. Now I just wanted to show you one of the ways that I kind of cheat my names and do it a bit quicker when I'm selling. So if anybody is doing these to sell, this is a really great way to do that. These are alphabet stamps, and I got these from Amazon. And they're really good. You'll have to excuse, they might be a little bit dirty. So they obviously have the letters underneath. Now what I do is I use Dylon fabric paint when I do this. And I'm just going to show you the two different ways that you can do it. So you can either use the stamps or you can freehand it, which I'm going to do. I don't know why, I've kind of fallen into freehanding them for the I Spy bags, but then sometimes for my crayon rolls, if you haven't seen my crayon rolls, there is a tutorial up on my YouTube, which uses this technique as well, and I show you the stamps in that too. And these stamps, so what I do, shake the paint, and these come in all kinds of colours. I'm sure they're available internationally as well. And then what I do is I take my brush and paint onto the letter rather than dipping the stamp into the paint. So that makes sure that you get a really nice, even layer. And then press it down onto the fabric. And as you can see, that's come out quite nicely. Now if I was going to just stamp into it like that, you're going to get a bit of a blob. It's not going to play very well. So definitely don't recommend that. You want to have a tissue to dab on. It's going to make your life a lot easier. And obviously you can wash them as well. So that's one way that I do my stamps, or my names I should say. The other way you can do it is just to literally freehand. One thing I should note is I have already prepped up this label. You don't have to do the label as well. You can leave this bit out if you'd prefer. But I've prepped up the label with my fusible webbing on the back. So I've still got that paper backing. And then there's the fusible webbing attached to the fabric. So you definitely want to do that first. And like I say, if you feel like you aren't that confident with painting on the name, then definitely those stamps are an absolute game changer. They really are great for doing things quickly or for getting that uniform look. Like prep the name up first before you sew it on, just to make sure that it's in the middle and it's all great before you sew it on, in case there's any mistakes or anything like that. So that's our name label. So I'm going to put that to one side, whoops, let that dry. And then we're going to move along to sewing up our window of the I Spy bag. So I've prepped up all my pieces here. You're going to want to have your clear vinyl. Now, if like me, you've shoved this in the bottom of a box or something and it's gone a bit crinkly, what you can do is you can heat up or press the iron onto your ironing board, and then you can lay the vinyl on, and then you can use a book or some more fabric or something heavy and actually press that out. Another thing you can do, depending on your vinyl, because obviously you want to be really super careful not to put the iron onto it, onto the clear vinyl. Another thing you can do is you can put your Teflon sheet over the top and then kind of almost touch it, but you have to be super quick not to melt it. Again, you're going to want to test a little bit to make sure it doesn't melt it. Just be super careful. Teflon sheet is a must when you're doing anything like that. But that's how you get out any of your creases. Okay, so we've cut out our clear vinyl, and then we've got 3 of the same pattern piece. If you've got a directional print, you want to think about that. Of course, you want to make sure that that is going up and down, not kind of that way. And then I've got 3 of those. And then I've also cut out this one, which I believe is pattern piece 5. And this is going to be the back pocket of the I Spy bag. And that is so that you can put your card in there, in the little pocket. Just keeps it really neat. So I'm going to take one of those squares for now. Put the rest to one side. And I'm going to turn that over. And I'm going to take a friction pen, and I've got my pattern piece. Got a long tail there. I'm going to take my pattern piece and I'm just going to lay it on top, and then I'm going to mark out that window. Oh dear, I haven't cut that very well, have I? It's okay, it will all be fine. I'm going to mark out that window. Then we're going to take another piece, same size, and we're going to place them right sides together, like so. And we're going to sew around that square. Now, I should mention that I'm sewing with a 2.5 stitch length. I always use Gutermann, nearly always in my projects, and I'm using a universal 80 needle. So I'm going to start in the middle of the square. I'm not going to start on the corners, and I'm going to show you why. I've got a 2.5 stitch length, like I say. I'm going to make sure that I hold my thread out of the way. Should always do that. That stops that nesting, or at least alleviates that a little bit. Going to make sure I go backwards and forwards to start. Always, always. And then when we get to the corner, I'm actually going to reduce my length down to just under 2. And that is so that you can get really nice and up into that corner. You get a much sharper corner that way as well. So I'm going to continue for a little bit, about a centimetre, lengthen it back up again to 2.5. Then I'm going to take my scissors, and we're going to cut around the inside of that square, leaving around a 5mm seam allowance. I'm going to snip into those corners as well, and when you snip into those corners, be super careful that you leave about 1mm, 1.5mm, 2mm from that edge, because you don't want to jeopardize that corner seam. Then we're going to flip that through to the back. Don't be afraid at this stage to kind of wiggle it around to try and get those corners really nice. It's not going to want to sit the way we want it to, so we just have to sort of manipulate it a little bit. We don't want any puckers. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew on the clear vinyl window. So you can actually, with this, pin it through. It's not going to jeopardize the vinyl because you're not going to see the holes, but you can also double side tape it. So I'm going to double side tape it. Then we're going to place our window, and I've designed it so that it's quite a bit larger, so that you've got a little bit of wriggle room, so to speak, for that. Okay, then we're going to flip it over, and then we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch or a couple of millimeters from that edge all the way around, and then we're going to leave a gap of 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to sew a second line of stitching from the first one. That is going to give us a really secure window. It's super important. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be making these for children, and it's super important that there's no beads or rice or the little trinkets that you put inside. They can't escape out. When I CE tested these because I was selling them, and in the UK you have to, I don't know if it's changed now after Brexit, but you have to CE test all toys to be within certain parameters of different things. You have to do prod tests and fire tests and all kinds of different things. And when I CE tested them, I found that I needed to do 2 lines of stitching in order for them to not break from the pull and the weight. You have to do weight tests and prod tests and all of that. So you know that with this method, it's going to be super strong. And like I say, I think actually what I'm going to do is I like to start in the corner which is going to have your name. So of course you could put your name here, you could put your name up the top, anywhere you want, but I like to have it going across that bottom corner. So I'm going to start stitching there, because then that little label is going to cover up that bit. Okay, so I'm going to hold our thread out of the way. I'm just going to make sure that that is as straight as it can be. Now, if you're doing the PUL or vinyl version of the I Spy bag, you're not going to need to do this same method for doing the window and pushing it through and pressing it and all that. You can just cut that with a raw edge, and that's going to be totally fine. You would pick it up from this part where I'm sewing on the vinyl window, and you're going to do the same method with the two lines of stitching. Just going to move my needle over so that it's a good distance from that edge. So then I'm going to use that edge of my foot to see where to sew. It's doing an automatic back stitch because I ended it on the back stitch. Just going to tweak that again. Okay, so finish that line of stitching. I'm going to do exactly the same, and I'm going to do 1 centimetre from the edge. Now I know, is it 3? I know that my needle in that position is 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch from the edge of my foot, so that's how I'm judging it. It's always good when you get a new machine just to figure that out, where your needle placement is, so that you can know for each project, right, that's 1 centimetre away. Now, I don't know if you just saw, in case I didn't explain it, I just checked then where was the right pivot point. So I kept doing 1 extra stitch so that I know when I move it round that the edge of the foot again is lining up with that line of stitches. Susan says, can you use double-sided tape on all zips? Yes, you can. You definitely, for bag making, you can use it on all zips. For clothes making, I would just check. It depends what the project was, especially with stretch. I think I would tack it in still and then remove the tacking afterwards, just because then you can sew right on top of that, or very, very close to the tacking line. I don't tend to stitch through the double-sided tape because that can gunk up your needle. Not always. You do need to use quilters double-sided tape, not regular double-sided tape, I should add. There is a difference. Quilters is a lot thinner and it disappears when you wash it. Obviously this kind of thing we're not going to wash. But yeah, that's something to bear in mind. I think if I was sewing a dress, I would still tack that in, but for bags and this kind of thing, I would go for the double-sided quilters tape. and we've got the little name label that we made earlier, and we're going to peel off our backing because we prepped that up before. What I like to do when I'm making these labels is I put the bond web on before I cut it out, then you get it right up to the edge, really nice and neat. So I'm placing it right the way over those fastening stitches so you won't see it. You want to make sure that it's outside or not in the seam allowance on the edges, and just past that corner because you don't want to be stitching into that corner. That's not going to look as good. Bring in my iron, and I'm just going to do that so that I don't iron on the pressing mat. Just going to kind of tack it down, and then being clear of the vinyl. Don't want to do it too much. Also, if you're doing this on, if you're making the vinyl or the PUL version, obviously you have to be really careful. It is still fine. I would just be super careful that you don't put the iron onto the vinyl too long, or the PUL too long. 0.4 on the length, and then a 2.5 on the width. And then I'll do my cutting locking stitch. Now obviously you can do it, you know, more close together or further apart depending on the look that you want. Totally your call. Okay, so then the next part is to do the pocket. So I'm going to put that to one side and pick up my pocket piece. Now this is pattern piece number 5, I think it is. And what I've done is I've actually prepped it up. So I've folded the top edge over by 1 centimetre. Then this just makes life a lot easier. You don't have to pin it if you're using a walking foot, I would say. I've got the same colour top and bottom on my thread in the bobbin and on the top. Make sure I turn back to straight stitch, and I want to make it 2.5, or maybe make it 3 because it, no, let's make it 2.5. Makes that funny noise for some reason when I cut the thread. Okay, so there we go. Cut off that little bit, don't like you. Then we're going to place all the pieces together and we're going to sew it up. So I'm going to grab the other piece that we haven't used yet and the ribbon. Now the ribbon, even though it's inside, you still want to secure those ends. Now the best way to do that I have found is with a lighter. So you just want to kind of show it to the ribbon. Sometimes it does catch fire, it's not a problem, just blow it out. Be super careful. You know, you want to make sure that you've taken all precautions for doing that. You don't want to burn yourself. Okay, so then you want to fold the ribbon over and put that to one side. I have also, where have I got it? Hopefully I haven't lost it. Oops. I wanted to show you the CE tag as well that I put into my toys because they have been tested. This is part of the CE testing process. If anybody is going through that then, and you've got any questions, then let me know and I will do my best to help. It was a few years ago, so it will have changed slightly, but I will certainly pass on anything that I know that I can help you with. So you want to take that plain piece that we haven't done anything to. Make sure that you've got the top of the print, if it's a directional print, obviously at the top. You want to make sure as well, when you do your pocket, that obviously you've got the print going the right way as well. You want to lay the pocket on top, wrong side to right side, so as it will be when it's finished. You want to get your ribbon and you want to place that just above it on the left. So put that to the left, and I'm going to place that with a pin, and my pins are at a right angle to the seam edge. Then I'm going to put in my label because I've got one. Obviously you might not have one. And I'm going to pop that in at a right angle. I'm going to move that up a little bit actually because I don't want to risk it being in the seam allowance. Then I'm going to place that one right sides down and pin it all the way around the edge. Again, I'm going to use them at a right angle. Okay, so I've pinned all the way around, and we're going to start at the top. So we're going to leave a gap of around 4 inches. So that's roughly just inside the clear vinyl. So start here, go all the way around and all the way up and finish at the top there as well. Then I'm going to cut off my corners. All 4 corners, and you can sometimes, I quite like to round them as well, so it's not like a direct triangle but a rounded triangle. Make sure you don't cut off the actual stitching, and obviously make sure you don't cut into that top piece as well. We're going to now turn that the right way out. Poke out those corners. Okay, so now that's the right way out. Then, because we're using the cotton, what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm just going to press that under, that seam allowance under by a centimetre, not half a centimetre, a centimetre, so that's going to make it easier for when it's filled, when we stitch it up together. So I've got my buttons here. Now, of course, with the pattern, in case you haven't seen it, you do get the printout card as well. So you can use your own trinkets, take a photo, draw them, write them in, whatever you want to do. I'm not sure what happened to my printer there. The purple wasn't coming out, but there we are. Right, so I've got my buttons. I'm going to pop those in there. And I've got a piece of paper that I'm going to turn into a kind of cone. It's going to make it easier to pop them in. Hopefully you can still see what's going on. Okay, so you can see why we press that down first, just makes it a lot easier. Bring back in my pins, move those out of the way. Again, put my pins in at a right angle. So many people get super scared about this. It's not scary if you go slow over the pins. If you go fast, then yeah, you probably will break a needle. But if you go slow over those pins, you can go as fast as you like up to that point, but then you need to go slow. Fast as you like, slow, fast as you like. Then what we're going to do is we're going to sew all the way around. Now what you could do to make it a bit easier is sew all the way around, or sew up to these points, then fill it, and then sew that top edge. You want to make sure that you sew that top edge with 2 lines of stitching. That is how you're going to stop the beads coming out through wear and tear for children. So that is a top tip, because obviously with the testing I found that I had to do 2 lines of stitching no matter what fabric you're using. Sometimes holding that thread out the way is not only beneficial to stop the nest, but you can actually gently pull it through as well if it gets stuck at the beginning. So there we are. We've got our I Spy bag. Obviously, if you didn't put in the pocket, you won't have the pocket in the back and the ribbon. You might have omitted those. But what we can do now is I've punched a hole in my card. Just want to pop it through.
Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to find out more about the 77 Club or how to get your hands on the pattern featured in this video, do check out the description below, and you can click on one of these links coming up on the screen right now to take you through to another tutorial. I'll see you on the next video.